scheduled zoning board of appeal meeting. Can everyone hear me clearly? No? Can you hear me now? Is that a little bit better?
Get the air turned off, or would that be miserable?
We're gonna need that air. Well, we'll just try to speak a little louder. But good afternoon and welcome to our scheduled zoning board of appeal meeting. The time now is 5:03 and we bring our meeting to order. It is our custom that we begin with a pledge of allegiance. However, we do not have a flag.
There's a little flag up there.
But we'll still stand in. We do have a small flag over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If anyone in here would like to be a part of our public comment, there's a form right here at this first table. If I could get you guys to fill that form out and mark on here whichever item that you would like to speak on. Notice that public comment you have up to 3 minutes. So just wanted to let everyone know that, so that we can stay in a timely manner. Notifications. Are we good with our notifications, Hillary? Thank you. Adoption of the agenda. May I get someone to make a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I understand that item 9 is not. I understand that item 9 has been removed from the agenda, so I would like to make a motion to accept the agenda as submitted with the removal of item 9 and item 10, which is the public comment.
So to adopt the agenda has been properly made in second. With those conditions, all in favor?
Aye.
Been passed.
I don't know.
Approval of the March 27th meeting. Have everyone had the opportunity to review those minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman, we have to make a change on the last page of the minutes where it states public comment. Mrs. Frederick called for public comment. She recused herself during that meeting, so I was the one that called for public comment. We can take that out of there.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to adopt the minutes of March 27th with those changes. May I get someone to second that motion?
I'll second it.
So it's been properly made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
No, that I'll excuse myself because I was not at that meeting. Item number 6, which has been remanded back to us, which is the Prutzman versus Beaufort County special use. Mr. Tom Taylor, would you like to come forward?
Mr. Chairman and board members, can you hear me okay?
Can you bring it closer to us?
Do you mind? I wish I could convince a judge to let me do this.
That AC is so noisy.
Lift it up a little bit. There you go. Is that okay?
Let me ask a question, Mr. Taylor, before you get started. Do we have any control over the air in this building? Any of the county staff? No? Okay. As you were.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Board members, good afternoon. I'm Tom Taylor. I've had the honor of appearing before you before. I know. I will. Thank you. I'm Tom Taylor, and I will try to speak loud so that everyone can hear, although it may not be that urgent that they do. It is an honor for me to be here today representing Mr. Prutzman. His wife, Lisa, could not be here. You all are aware of this from July of last year. This is an application for a special use permit for a lodging short-term rental at 129 Sea Pines Drive on St. Helena. The staff recommendation is for approval of this. I won't bore you all with going through everything. We feel that it meets the criteria under the CDC of 72130D. Again, Hillary has been kind enough to set that forth, and it is on the approval. We ask today for your consideration of approval. The Prutzmans are very adamant that they will work with the renters to make sure that not only is the turtle protection statute or ordinance adhered to, but that also they are going to make every effort they can to ensure that this is used in a way that the community hopefully would not know that there was not a resident living there. They will do everything possible to try to ensure that. We are aware that there have been some issues on the beach area there, but it would appear from what John tells me and the photographs that I've seen that most of this is non-rental related from any of this. There are, of course, several permits in this area that have already been given. And without taking too much of your time, I would respectfully ask that you support this application and be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Is there any questions for the applicant? Well, I'd just like to say that when we do move on to this applicant, we were in mediation, and we have no control over the air condition. I have no control over that either. I think they have it up as high as they can bring it.
You need to pull up closer.
Or is it even for us, or is it just for the TVs?
So as I was saying, when we make the motion for this applicant, I mean, we were in the mediation, and during the mediation time, I kind of reflect back on the requirements that we are required to go by, which I struggled during that mediation to find reason to really disapprove this application. I mean, based on the criteria that's presented before us. So that is why this is being remanded back to the board for a reconsideration on the on this particular item. So if we do not have any questions for Mr. Taylor, we would like to hear from the county if need be.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah, please come to the mic. Oh.
The last time we had this project in front of us, I recommended approval because this property did not have any covenants and restrictions that would prohibit the use, and they met all the requirements for a special use. So staff recommends approval.
All right, is there any questions for the staff?
With the condition that they pay attention to the turtle lighting and all that stuff in Division 5.11.50.C.1.2.
Thank you. Do anyone have any questions, concern about this item before we move into our legal?
We have public comment first, don't we?
Okay, yeah, I'm aware of that.
Okay.
Is there any other questions for the county or the applicant? All right, so at this point, we are moving to our public comment. Mr. Craig Crosser? Mr. Craig.
Good afternoon. I'm Craig Crossan. I live at 137 Seaton's Drive. I think the best way to describe this process has been permitting by exhaustion. We have been here now 4 times. The community itself has come together to basically oppose this. You've heard our arguments before, whether they've been environmental, ecological, safety of our property, safety of the people there. When the state of South Carolina basically said, we do not want short-term rentals except under special circumstances, they were referring to situations where the community itself supports it and it has the infrastructure to administer it. while there may be no covenants against having short-term rentals, we do not have the infrastructure. We are in the county. We do not have an HOA. And the community is basically opposed to this. We have brought this before you many times. And again, there's no sense, as the councilman just said, as council just said for the applicant, you've heard all the arguments. But what you really haven't heard is anybody standing up and supporting it. The community has been very much against this from the beginning. And what has been somewhat disappointing for me as a person of the community is that this board at times has wanted to give deference to the applicant. And this was probably best demonstrated in my mind when the board voted. It was a tie vote. It was clear that the administrator said, in a tie vote, it is denied. And Mr. Chairman, you were very reluctant to do that for whatever reason. And the question that I have is that this board is here to serve the community. The community in this case has come together multiple times, 4 times now, to oppose this. And yet here we are, and we don't feel like we're being heard. And the question, you know, what more can we do? Just because there is no restriction on having it doesn't mean that we should have it. And Mr. Chairman, I hesitate in doing this because I don't want to upset the board. That doesn't go in our favor. But given your past reluctance, I'm going to ask you if you would recuse yourself from this vote, because I'm not sure you've approached it with an open mind at times. And that's all I have to say. And by the way, there is nothing in your rules that limits public comment to 3 minutes, at least that are online. And to do that at this point, you know, if somebody needs more time, I would ask you that you grant it for them. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, so you want me to recuse myself based on what?
Based on my observations of how you've approached this specific item in the past, your reluctance when the board voted 3-3 to accept that, it felt like you really want this to go forward. I'm sorry, but there's been, you know, consistent community, you know, saying, no, we don't want it. No, we don't have the infrastructure to support it. Yes, we are concerned about safety of the property, safety of the dunes. When we talk about safety, it's direct and indirect. Direct from potential renters. That, you know, when you're in there for 3 or 4 days, I'm sorry, it's not like living at the property. They can damage the dunes. That puts us at greater risk. And we have seen that. And when you're at the end of the road, I don't know if you've been down Coffin Point and turned right on Jeanette, you run out of pavement, and it takes a long time for any type of help to arrive. And these points fell on deaf ears, in my opinion, in watching the council over a period of time, and in watching how you heard that, your reluctance to accept the 3-3 tie vote as a negative. And it's for those reasons, you know, I've learned a lot coming to 4 meetings. Mm-hmm. I can be taught, and it is based on those points that I'm asking you, from my perspective, to recuse yourself. If there are any other questions, I'll certainly try to address them.
Yeah, so just wanted to clarify, it's
Sure.
not that I am for or against and are reluctant to make an action. However, I go by the CDC and the requirements and what it.
Yes, sir. But the problem was when your administrator explained to you that a tie vote was a denial, I interpreted your actions as being very against that. And based on that, based on this exhaustive procedure that we've had for this one item I mean, it's now been 9 months, and I get it. You know, when we talk about mediation, there's been no mediation with the community. You know, I don't know, you know, again, maybe there's mediation with the board, and I understand that mediation, you know, it's all in terms of how you're using the term, but there's been no one come to the community that I'm aware of, at least no one's come to me personally, and said, you know, Craig, this is how we're going to do this. We're going to vet these people in a certain way. None of that's been done. You know, if you get on Airbnb or VRBO, you get what you get. You know, you're based on other people's reviews. I'm sorry. You know, and I'm sure 90% of the people that may rent it are going to be great. But I'll tell you what, when you're at the end of the road, when something doesn't go right, it's a problem. And we've had problems with people down there. And what we're trying to do as a community is simply limit those problems. We've got kids, we've got, you know, most of us are retired. You know, we're not going to jump out there and try to break up fights or whatever, or listening to whatever's going on. I'm sorry. And those, you know, our comments, from my perspective,
3 minutes
have really fell on deaf ears.
Thank you, sir. Linda? Linda? Minnie Linda?
Comments were out of place. Say that.
Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Marty Linder, 113 Sea Pines. So far, I can only reiterate what some other people have said, but hopefully I'll get past some of that. There's been no one here but the applicant that has spoken in favor of that. We as a community have showed up here many times to shown the door a few times because a for-hire lawyer is either playing games or doing something to make his bill higher or whatever it is. I don't know. But how many times can we do this, and how many times can we tell you people as a board that we as a neighborhood do not want this? We have a right to our peace and quiet, our peace of mind. If we wanted to live on a street corner in Port Royal, Bluffton, St. Helena is not the place. Every other one of those places has VRBOs and rental houses on every corner. That's not what we want. We moved here for the peace and quiet, the serenity. There is a person here that only is going to be an absentee landlord that is here for the money. That's it. That is the only reason they are here, is to fill their pockets. Okay? And it's at our expense. And I hope you can hear that, because we as a neighborhood have rights also. And I'm not sure that this board actually hears that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Kennedy?
I didn't realize what I was signing up
Could you speak? Yes.
for on that little slip, but I'll be glad to speak. My husband and I are building at Coffin Point. I really didn't know anything about this issue until I got the notice that you were having a meeting. And I haven't talked with anyone, but I understand these are my neighbors, and I'm probably not going to make friends tonight understanding the issue, because I am for people being able to do with what they want to with their home within reason and within the law. If there is a status that you cannot have these rentals, then I would understand. But since there is not a body, a law against it, then I think I don't believe that the county board would really have the right to come in and say you can't do something, even though I can't tell you why you can't. So saying that, my husband and I owned Camelot Farms Equestrian Center. Fripp Island just bought it, and the entire time we had a rental unit. 23 years. You can check the police records. There's never been a bar fight, a brawl, police called for people that have come to that rental unit. So maybe I've just been one that has had awesome, great luck having a rental unit. You know, at the farm at that time. My plans for my house, we're building now. My husband's an invalid, so we will have certain people staying at our home. I don't know, visiting nurses. We plan on having them to stay to help with his care. I don't know what the county thinks about that. If you're going to make laws that you can't have this person or that person, you're going to vet the people. What about people like me that need people to come into my home and help me with him? So saying that, I'm sorry to my new neighbors. I'm a very nice person, and you shake your head at me. I'm sorry, but I'm all for people being able to rent homes. Our homes there, the rent, I mean, the taxes are very high, and I don't see things getting any better, probably going up. And anyone that can help offset the cost of maintaining a lovely home there at Coffin Point and taking care of the property there, being good stewards of the land, I believe we ought to have the freedom to be able to do it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Martin Upka.
Martin Hupka. I live at 135 Sea Pines Drive. I agree with most of the comments. My only comment is we made a decision. It went to appeal. They got rejected. We're back. So nothing's changed. So your original decision was correct from my standpoint. I think the only thing that's changed from this time frame, from my perspective, is that the house is up for sale. Now, I talked to the staff, and the staff said it's, any exception goes with the owner. So if they're going to sell the house, why are we even here? It should be rejected because the house is for sale. And when I check with the staff, it doesn't carry over to the next owner. It's by owner, from my understanding. So I think we're all wasting our time. But in the meantime, I go along with the original decision. Let's make it the way we have it today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Richard Neal.
Thought my wife was coming. Richard Neal, 131 Sea Pines Drive. I'm opposed to the special use permit, or I'm at 131 Sea Pines. I'm opposed to the special use permit there at 129 for all the reasons you've heard here. I have been here 4 times, and we're struggled to try to determine why this is going on here. I'm opposed for all the same reasons that I have been previously here. We think it's an environmental sensitive area, and we fear these vacationers don't appreciate that. This board has already denied this permit, and as you've heard, nothing has changed. That's where we struggle. We've got a good showing of the community here. One might even say we have a majority of our local neighborhood, and they're telling you the same thing. We are opposed to this. So we request you deny this permit a second time. I also have a letter here from Richard Strasner. Richard couldn't make it tonight. Richard owns a property at 141 Sea Pines Drive on St. Helen. He's had this home in his family for over 20 years. And by way of this letter, I want to state my opposition to the special use permit at 129 Sea Pines Drive, St. Helena Island. Thank you.
Thank you. Arnold Hollis.
Hi, everybody. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. I'm not in favor of short-term rental because I dealt with it before on both sides of me. And the other thing I want to bring it to your attention, I don't know if you guys all realize this. Have any of you seen this property?
Seen what?
Seen this property that's for sale?
No.
You would swear that it's been abandoned and hasn't been kept up. And the other thing I'm wondering, I mean, if you're going to rent that, what kind of people are you going to draw to rent? It's a sign right there. But they're not even keeping up the property. So that irks me, because everybody else keeps their property up here. But that's my beef, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for public comment for this item? If not, we will close public comment.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go into executive session to receive legal advice regarding Liz Pertzman's special use permit.
So there's a motion to move for legal, and it's been properly made and second. All in favor? So we're going to take a short moment so that we can get some legal counseling, and we will return.
Yes. Yeah. Right here.
There was no votes taken. You can move forward.
Thank you, sir. All right, so since we're out of executive session and we return back, we would like to open this up for discussion. If anybody would like to move or have a conversation on this. If not, we will definitely move into a motion to approve or to deny.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hear from Mr. Taylor again, please.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
It wasn't discussed, how is this property going to be managed?
Mr. Prutzman lives here in Beaufort now at the Ladies Island Marina. He is less than 15 minutes away, and he will be handling it himself as far as any rentals that would go. But he is here permanently.
Okay.
And I have a question as well.
Yes, sir.
I think I heard one of the public comment individuals stated that this property is up for sale. Is that correct?
Mr. Mack, it is on the market at this point in time, yes, sir.
Okay. Do we have any more questions for Mr. Taylor? Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your consideration.
And again, we will open up for discussion. If anyone would like to, let's have a discussion on this topic before we make a motion. And if not, may I have someone to place a motion on the floor?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the special use permit for short-term rental with the conditions listed in Article 5.11.50.C.1.2 of the Community Development Code.
So it's a motion on the floor to approve. Let's go through those criterias, if you may, stating why you making a motion to approve the criteria listed in the special use permit. What is 7?
First off, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plans, purposes, goals, objectives, and policy, and applicable standards for building structural intensities and densities and intensities of use. So this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The proposed use shall be compatible with the character of the land in the immediate vicinity. Applicant's use request is compatible with the character of the land in the immediate vicinity. The applicant will ensure improper behavior by the renter is kept to a minimum and not become a nuisance to the neighborhood. The property is located on the St. Helena Sound, which is governed by Division 5.11.50.C.1.2. Lighting standards, especially lighting, shall be shielded so that it is not visible from any barrier, island, beach, or beach dune system between May the 1st and October the 31st of every year. The proposed use design shall minimize adverse effects, including visual impact of the proposed use on adjacent lands. The proposed use should not have any adverse effects. The county has limited the traffic to all cars being parked on the lot. The applicant shall be responsible for stopping any adverse effects that may occur from the renters. The applicant has stated that there are no recorded covenants and restrictions that prohibits the use. The proposed use shall minimize adverse impacts on the environment, traffic and condition, infrastructure, and government services. Let me just say, the applicant has provided required parking spaces on the property.
Thank you. So again, there is a motion on the floor to approve the special use permit. And just for the record, before I ask,
We need a second.
I know,
Okay.
but let me say what I'm going to say. Just for the record, I will not recuse myself from this. So So with that being said, a motion is on the floor to approve. May I have someone to second that motion?
I'll second it.
So it's been properly made and second. All in favor of approving that special use permit, please signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3. So the motion carries. It passed. And you guys can get with the county at the end.
4 versus.
Sir. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to recuse myself from the next item.
Yes, ma'am.
Voted against. Yeah.
So item number 11 is Mr. Fredericks for reconsideration.
Make sure that these run smooth so there's no appeals coming.
Hello, I'm
Give him a
Michael
mo-
Frederick.
Can you just give him a moment to exit, please? Just one moment. You may continue.
Okay. Hi, I'm Michael Frederick. I'm the architect for this project, 726 Sea Dragon Lane. This site is a difficult one because of the setbacks. Does everybody have a copy of the site plan?
Yes, we should.
I've got a zip drive, if we can put it on the screen there. Or
Everyone have a copy?
Well, I remember from the last meeting.
Okay, there's a setback that Fripp Island requires, and then there's the baseline setback that DES requires. And if you put those two together, there's only a tiny sliver of property left to build on the lot. The way the process worked, we took it to Fripp Island in November, and they rejected it because it was too small. The guidelines say it has to be 1,500 square feet on the first floor, and it was too close to the road. So we redesigned it. We took it back with the 1,500 square foot floor plan on the first floor, and they said it was still too close to the road. If we wanted to get it passed, we either had to take it to the board of directors and get a variance from them, or move it back further. And so what we did, we presented it again. We moved it. There's a house next door, and we took the same setback from the front as they have and pushed it back to that setback, and then we were approved.
When you said we were approved, you mean by Fripp Island?
Fripp Island.
Yes.
And then after we got the Fripp Island approval, we took it to DES and got the baseline approval variance accepted by them, and then we brought it to the county.
Okay.
So we've got the two of the three that we need. Any questions?
I think you may have cut it. There you go.
You were approved last time. The last meeting we approved this. Have you read Mr. Williams' his objections to this?
I have, yes, I have.
Can you tell me what kind of reply, what are your response to his?
Well, he asked us to move it closer to the road, and we can't move it closer to the road. We've tried twice, and we were turned down 2 times. So we weren't able to move it closer to the road. And the house, as we've designed it now, doesn't even have a porch, because we wanted it to be so narrow that we were far enough off of the baseline. But we did carefully read their replies, their response.
So basically, without this variance, it's basically rendered somewhat unbuildable.
Oh, without a variance, it's unbuildable.
Okay. All right.
It's 726 Sea Dragon Lane.
Mr. Chairman, When we voted on that to approve it, it was a unanimous vote.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for the applicant? No questions for the applicant. Hillary, thank you, sir. Hillary, do you want to come up? If not, we understand.
My recommendation stays the same. I mean, it was already approved. I guess we put it back on so we could hear Mr. Williams' comments.
Okay. All right. Mr. Williams, could you please come up?
Good afternoon. I'm Harrison Williams. I represent the owners of 724, the neighboring property.
Excuse me one moment.
Yeah.
Oh. Excuse me.
Okay.
Forgot. So this is one of these applications that one of the board members need to make a motion for reconsideration. So with that being said, we will have to reverse a little bit. And may I have one of the board members make a motion so that we could reconsider this application?
So moved. It didn't work. It didn't work. You want to move?
I move that we reconsider.
So it's been properly made to reconsider. I need a second. All in favor? So now it's been properly made. You can move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clear up, I think, some confusion, the reason we're at this reconsideration stage is I just mistakenly received an email from staff that the matter last month was continued to this month. That is why I was not here and none of my clients were here. And that's why I've asked for the reconsideration. So I'd ask that the board maybe consider that this is the first time that this has been heard. I understand it was unanimously approved last time, but I would ask that the board maybe consider this is the first time that this request has been considered. My clients very strongly believe that the site plan that has been submitted by the applicant does not reflect the house being put in the same line as its neighboring properties. And they believe that is essential to preserving this neighborhood and how all of these beachfront homes are built. I handed up a photograph earlier. That photograph is from a 1997 magazine. That photograph is actually taken from the applicant's lot, and it's a photograph of my client's house. And as you can see, there's the rock berm, or whatever you would call it, around the side. That is because when Fripp Island installed those rocks back a long time ago, when the beach was right up against all of these houses, the applicant's lot was considered unbuildable, and the high tide water went over the lot. It's my understanding the applicant has owned this lot for a significant amount of time, and that we're not asking for this board to say you can't build your house. We're asking for reasonable accommodations. I understand that now that Fripp Island said that the house was too close to the road. However, we're asking this board to say you need to resubmit some plans and ask for the house to be closer to the road, get a variance from Fripp Island as well. I reached out to Mr. Frederick hoping that we could resolve this, received no response. So this is the first time that I have heard, or my clients have heard, that Fripp Island told them that the house was too close to the road. My client's house is around 2,600 square feet. They want to build a 3,000 something square foot house. We asked that this board say, let's resubmit a new site plan. Let's make the house a little bit smaller. Let's move it back closer to the road. Let's work with Fripp Island to get that done. If you went out to this site, you would see it's a sandy road that has grass all over it. I think Fripp Island would be willing to consider that type of request. The other thing that's kind of interesting about this property is at the end of this road, or as they do on Fripp Island, there's just 2 dead palm trees laying down to create a barrier. This house would be the last one on that road. So they can make that case to Fripp Island and say, no, we're not going to block any traffic. This house can be closer to the road, and it preserves my client's property value, and it preserves the house that they've loved for years, and then get to enjoy that porch, get to enjoy their view of the beach, just as the applicant would like to do. We're just asking, let's be some good neighbors, let's work together, and let's all compromise so that we can have something that works. And the applicant has known for years that this is a very difficult lot to build on, and now they're asking this board to allow them to build a house far closer to the dunes than any other house on this road, or really any other house on this whole stretch of Fripp Island. And if you look at the site plan, I believe that how the house is sitting on this lot at the moment is even closer than the 20-foot setback that existed when they purchased the lot. In the staff recommendation, I believe it said that when all these lots were subdivided, that the setback was 20 feet. They want to go even closer to the dunes than that. And I believe that this board should say, let's take a minute, let's get a compromise, let's resubmit, and not approve this variance that is going to damage my client's property value on a lot that the applicant has known as the owner for years that it's pretty unbuildable, it's low-lying, it used to be underwater. We don't know what's going to happen with all of the sand out at Fripp Island. It used to not be there, now it's there. We know the ocean can take it away, and I think the board should be hesitant to allow an applicant to build a house as close to this dune system that they want to, which could one day have the ocean underneath it. And I think we should be hesitant to allow that and submit a compromise position. Again, my clients don't want to tell this person, too bad, you can't build a house. We just want to work with them to come up with a reasonable solution that preserves our use and enjoyment of the current house that's next door and allows them to use and enjoy their property as well. And again, I'm sorry for the confusion. I wish this wasn't a reconsideration. I wish I was here last month. I'm sorry for the mix-up, and I hope that the board can reconsider its position and maybe allow a resubmission that allows us to work with our neighbors and to come up with a better solution. But we believe the application as submitted is inappropriate and would damage the beach and damage this neighborhood. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions?
Yes, sir. Was there not a letter from Mr. Patterson, an attorney, concerning this issue?
I work for Mr. Patterson, and that is what I wrote that letter.
Was it stated in that letter, correct me if I'm wrong, that they didn't want the house there because it blocked their view?
That is one of their concerns, is the blocking of the view, and that is because of how far forward they want this house to be built, and that's why we're asking that it be moved back.
Any other questions? So would you say that this applicant have done their due diligence? I think I've heard him say they have approached the Fripp Island board maybe on 2 occasions, and it was Fripp Island that requested that they back their front?
That just heard, well, that's the first time that I've heard that. I have not heard that from the applicant outside of this meeting.
Okay.
And that's why I made the comment of, I did reach out to Mr. Frederick and say, can we talk about this? And I just didn't receive any response.
Okay. Well, I'm just going off based on what he just said, you know. So obviously it's his first time I'm hearing it as well. So is there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I don't think we have any public comment for this item, but do we have public comment? Anyone out in the public that would like to speak on this item? If not, we will close public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a reconsideration on the floor. We can open it up for discussion, or we can move forward and, based on the information that's been presented before us and testimony we've heard, we can make a motion.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the variance at 14.2 feet from the OCR and baseline and approve the variance.
Want to go ahead and...
Ms. Alston, was this the one where we also, the county was requesting the lighting standards be, and so I would move, make a friendly amendment to amend to add those lighting standards in 5.11.50.C.12.
So it's a motion on the floor to approve with the conditions of the lighting standards. May I get someone to second that motion?
Amend my motion to... if
You want to go ahead and redo
I'll
it?
amend the motion to, with the conditions that are listed in Article 5.11.50.C.1.2 of the Community Development Code.
So the motion doesn't need to be amended because there was no second on it
Okay,
yet.
so-
So it's still the same main motion.
Second that motion.
So it's been properly made now and seconded. All in favor of approving, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? Unopposed. So this has been approved unanimously, and you can get with the county afterwards. You can return, Ms. Jane. Obviously, she's listening. So now we move to item number 13, Beaufort County requesting a variance for a river walk wider than 5 feet in a river buffer.
Good evening. I'll make sure you can hear me all right. My name is Laura Ballack. I am a landscape architect with Kimley Horn, the landscape architect for the project, and we are working with the county, the Land Preservation Department with Stephanie Najid. So I will speak to this variance today. Variance 1, there will be one of 2. So variance 1 here is to talk about the walkway. The Pineview Preserve is a public passive park, as you saw from the materials submitted in the application. The variance would increase that walkway within the river buffer for about 20 to 25 feet, from a width of 5 feet to 8 feet. This is requested in order to improve this facility for public benefit, allowing two-way traffic, pedestrian traffic, or side-by-side wheelchair access to be allowed on that walkway. Again, it's a really modest change to increase that width and to allow for maximum public benefit of this very otherwise very natural facility, earthen trails that will allow visitors to access in this particular part of the river an overlook. So staff has recommended approval for this, and we kindly request that you consider that approval in your decision. Happy to answer any questions.
Is there any questions?
Did we not approve not long ago the same thing over in Bluffton to widen to 10 feet?
I will allow the county staff to speak to that.
Okay. We did the same thing for the
Hello.
park in Bluffton, did we not?
Yes, you did. The Ocoee River Park, it's actually currently under construction, and it was widened from 5 to 8 feet as well.
Any other questions? Thank you. I mean, we have the recommendations from the county. Hillary, do you have anything else that you would like to add?
Not for this, no.
Okay. We do have public comment. Tom Miller?
Hello, I'm Tom Miller from Beaufort. You have a sheet on your table there, the DS, that shows the property that they're talking about. And I own the long, skinny stretch that's 10 acres adjacent to it, and have owned it for about 45 years. Have put it in conservation easement about 30 years ago. and there's an old campsite on it. There's a old well on it. There's a dock on it that's been permitted probably permitted 30 years ago. The original dock wasn't ever permitted. So I have no objection at this point, carefully when I say that, to what why they're widening it, and they're going to be there's number 15 is also pertaining to the same site, and they're going to widen that access road to 10 feet. So all the trails throughout this entire project are going to be 10 feet wide. Don't have a problem with that. Okay. The problem is, okay, as we see in New Jersey, as we saw of the upstate, I'd like to know what rural and critical lands and the county plans to do for fire prevention. Okay. Now we know this is a quarter mile back to the river. Okay, and it's all longleaf pines, huge pine cones, oak leaves. Okay, the fact of the matter is that unfortunately the circumstance is that the people that are going to be back there are going to be smoking. Okay, it's just what's going to happen, and that's probably the best thing that's going to happen. But it is, from what I understand, going to be closed dusk to dawn. Am I correct in that? Okay, but I'm concerned that. What are we going to do for prevention, since it's earthen, which means longleaf pine straw, which I don't need to tell you how fast that goes up. And if we're obviously going to, I assume we're going to put signs up that says no smoking, but what are we going to do when they smoke anyway? And you can't really have butt things out there on the trail if you're not going to tell them they can smoke anyway. So how do we solve that problem? And as all of us have unfortunately read around the country, when these fires start, it's always thought that it's lightning. 2 months later, it's not lightning. Okay, somebody started the fire, and they may not intended to start it, but it started. Okay, and so I'd like to know what they're going to do from a prevention standpoint, and then what are we going to do if it does start? What's the eradication plan? Does that 10 feet allow for a pumper truck to go down to put it out? Or are we just going to wave at it because the parking lot's in the front and we've got almost 2 miles of trails that are 10 foot wide back in 120 acres? Okay, I mean, there's no way to get there. How are you going to bring water to it? There is no water to it. Are we going to pump from, or is our plan to pump from the creek? Is our plan to pump from the restrooms that are up front? Are we going to run a sprinkler system? What are we going to do to prevent and put out the fire if it happens? Because my property is adjacent to it for a quarter mile back, 1,400 feet back. All right, I've had Corps of Engineers come in there. They've fire blocked it. They've done what they could. But this is at acres that I'm not going to be overseeing, and again, that's my concern. And I'd love to hear what their plan is, because again, I'm in conservation easement. I like that it's rural and critical lands next to me. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I like it, but let's do it smart, and let's just not wait till crisis happens. The other thing, they've got again a quarter mile walkway back, and it ends in a pier head. Okay, the pier head, I believe, is intentionally short of the water. Is that correct? Excuse me. It's a pier head. But it's not on the water.
It's just a deck.
We're saying the same thing. It's an observation platform, so intentionally does not go to the water. Okay, which is, I understand, and is smart. And they've got a fence that goes off on the side about 15 feet either way to keep people on the observation deck. Let me say that from that site, okay, you will see my cabin over there in that part where that parking lot is. And there's a cabin sitting right there, and there's a dock that goes out right there. Okay, now, so we're out there a quarter mile back in the woods on an observation deck. How often do you think I'm going to get a visitor, okay, to the cabin? And is there a plan or a suggestion for me on how I might address that? And I really don't want a fence. Okay, I'm willing to put up signs. I guess they would be willing to put up signs. Are there going to be cameras? Those are my concerns, okay? And I would just like rural and critical lands in the county to understand those concerns and try to be helpful in getting everybody's thoughts and good ideas together and put it forward.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that the county could get together and you guys could, come together with some type of understanding before concept.
Am I allowed a rebuttal?
Yeah.
So this property was planned several years ago already. We did do stakeholder workshop. We did have people come and provide comment. I'm not sure if the gentleman came or not, but we did hear people's concerns and comments. First off is my department are wildland firefighters. So we have an ATV with a water tank on the back of it that we would use to do such a thing. We also have contacts with South Carolina Forestry, so just like anybody else who owns large properties of land, you contact the forestry department when a fire is started. We've also had discussions with the Ladies Island Fire Department. They're aware of the property, they're aware of the trails, and so we've done whatever preventative measures we can by making sure that the appropriate authorities are involved and aware of the project and the review of said project. So we do have the fire department that has already reviewed the plan and has agreed to the plan. As far as like the trespassing, that's just like any other park. I do not believe people trespass through just open woods. We have trails that are going to be mowed for a reason to keep people on trail. We have not yet had a problem with any of the other passive parks that are adjacent to neighbors with trespassing issues. Also, the observation platform we're building, you can't see his property from that spot. We've been there tons of times. I didn't even know he had a dock out there because you can't see it from that area. So it's not an attraction that people are going to go out there, see his property and go, oh, what's that over there? And then traipse through hundreds of feet of woods to get to his property. The location that we're at is pretty far down from that property, that joint property line. And it is also very, very wooded. It's not like an open grassland where you can see through the trees. It's very brushy and very snaky. And so most people who visit don't want to go traipsing through the woods for fear of getting bit by snakes or just mosquitoes and bugs and other things that occur.
Thank you.
I have a question, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Are you allowed to do prescribed burns?
I am allowed to do prescribed burns. On this property, it is highly unlikely that that would occur because of all of the neighbors. It is such a smoke-sensitive area. The only way for the smoke would be to go straight up, and that's an impossible weather condition.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there any other public comment for this item? If not, we'll close public comment. Ladies and gentlemen, we've heard from the applicant. What will be the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve the variance for the 8-foot wide path out to the observation platform.
So it's a motion to approve. And second, all in favor? Signify by raising your hand.
Second, the motion.
Two seconds.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we voting?
Yeah. Any opposed? None opposed. So the first variance have been approved. And you want to come forward with your second?
We did bring some additional illustrations so that we can have this discussion and help you visualize what we're talking about a little bit better. I also have a letter from our neighbor that we surround on all three sides who is in support of this variance. So I'd like to hand those out if that's okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
So this variance is on this south side,
Yes.
on the south part of
It is a south, one of the south borders of the property that is directly across from John Calhoun Road and aligns with our proposed park driveway entrance.
Sitting right smack in the
And again, Laura Ballack, landscape architect with Kimley Horn, and on behalf of the county, here to talk about Pineview Preserve, the new public passive park. So this variance request, I'm just going to start from the beginning, even though I know some of you are getting these papers. The variance request is to allow for a modified buffer condition for several reasons that we would like to expand on. And my first point, and before you look too deeply, I mean, you can do as you wish, look through the packet, but I'd like to just point out that the agenda item discusses this, refers to the variance as a that the variance is about the driveway. It's actually not the driveway for the park that this pertains to. If you refer to the 5th sheet, I believe, in your packet, there's a blow up of what we're going to do. It's got C100 in the lower right-hand corner. This is our demolition plan. It looks like this. Okay. The reason I referred to you this is then we are labeling what the different items are. So as I talk through this variance request, you understand what elements of the site are. So you see the proposed park driveway entrance, which is directly across from John Calhoun along Sam's Point Road. And then as a vehicle enters the site, straight ahead you see a pervious maintenance road. Then there's a parking area that loops around, and that would be for the general visitors. But the pervious maintenance road is the feature that is triggering this variance request. It's because that maintenance road nears a southern property boundary here, next to a single-family private residential property, 508 Sam's Point Road, owned by the Bukovich family. And so what I'd like to talk about there is you see that the maintenance road, which would be it's a pervious surface. It would not be paved. It meets up with the existing earthen trail that is then that path that would wind throughout the park. You can see this tight condition, and I want to talk about why that tight condition is there. And that is in part what the rest of this packet is about. So if you go back to the very beginning, again, this is a variance request for this maintenance road, which would be used about one time a week, okay? And it meets up with that earthen trail so that we do not have to create more damage to create this facility. We've been very respectful and responsive to the existing tree canopy, and we've preserved nearly 100% of the trees on the property. We have selectively placed the maintenance road, the parking area, the driveway to the park entrance, specifically to not impact trees or significant trees. And so it's laid out quite tightly to allow for that. But if we go back to the first image in your packet, it is a survey, property survey from 2019. This survey shows that the condition, the property lines prior to a conveyance of that drive, now I'm going to talk about a different driveway, okay? The Bukovich property has a driveway as well, and that was a shared property access prior to 2022. So the property lines, and you can see in the second sheet is a zoom in of this condition. The property line of Pineview Preserve actually used to include that shared access. It was shared access because it allowed access back to that earthen road, which we're using as a park trail. Because of SCDOT, the Department of Transportation, requires the park entrance to align directly across from John Calhoun Road. It is creating, it created back then a condition in which that shared access area highlighted in yellow was determined to be something that the property owner to the south, the Bukoviches, wanted to obtain. So the highlighted area highlighted yellow was sold from the county to the Bukoviches, if you follow me. That created a condition in which, when we go back several years later now, and had to go out and lay out this parking lot and driveway entrance, we had a tight condition. So in essence, a variance is permitted when there's a hardship that is, that was kind of created by the county by letting go of that piece of property. And so we're just asking for an ability to continue to allow that allow that layout of the maintenance road to exist as it would have allowed for with that shared access being in place. So another reason for requesting this variance is that we would have to put up a solid, a completely opaque fence. Okay, we're only 7 feet from the property line, whereas a larger buffer is usually allowed. But the property owner, the Bukoviches, have requested that we continue with the wood rail fence. The wood rail fence is a beautiful fence. It's found at several other park facilities. It's the second to last page in your packet. The wood rail fence is not an opaque fence. However, it fits the natural conditions. It blends in very nicely, and the neighbors, the Bukoviches, have requested that we maintain that fence. That is what they want to see. They do not want to see a solid fence. And so that is another rationale for why we wanted to kind of bring these additional materials to you. And while staff has stated a different opinion in their recommendation, we think that these factors weigh into our rationale, and we wanted to let you hear those thoughts. And additionally, when staff has stated in their recommendation to deny that we could just simply shift the facility away from the Bukovich's property, well, in fact, we could, but we would be taking down more trees. And we request that we can maintain the condition as it is, the layout as it is, as the neighbors would like that, and also it allows for us to achieve the natural setting that is part of the point of the park. And I dropped my notes, but I think I've made my points.
Is there any question for the applicant? What other plan, if this does not, this pervious maintenance road is obviously your main concern, one of them, I would say. So what is your other contingency plan if this does not go through?
Well, we would have to realign the whole entire parking lot, still to allow access directly across from John Calhoun, but my civil engineer is here as well with me. We've looked at it together, and we would need to push everything north, essentially. And that would create as I mentioned, more impacts to the trees, the existing tree canopy than we would like to have at this point.
Okay, is there any other questions?
And the homeowners are okay with this?
Yes, this is the letter that was provided to you right at the beginning. So I will just point out that they firmly believe the split wood fence that's highlighted in the middle of the second paragraph would be more suitable option for the location in question. Blends in harmoniously and allow the sense of openness that they desire.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Could we hear from the county? I would like to hear from the county this time.
Because to get a variance, you have to prove a hardship. There's more than enough land for this project to meet the required 20-foot buffer. The driveway she's talking about that they're wanting to put into that buffer, they can realign that. I mean, it can be realigned and moved outside of the buffer. I understand that the neighbor is okay, but we're here to ensure that all Beaufort County citizens meet the requirements of the code. And if there is a true hardship, then they come to you guys for a variance. I don't see where there's a hardship for this. So that's why staff recommended disapproval. And it'll be up to you guys to make your decision.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the county? If not, thank you, Ms. Hillary. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have heard from the applicant and the county. We have a number of things in our packet here to review. And we have a question for the applicant.
Your hardship is saving trees. And have you done a comparison of how many trees you're saving in this plan as opposed to what you would do in meeting the buffer?
So the saving of the trees is kind of a secondary hardship. The hardship was actually created when we sold the driveway. But the analysis of the trees, we did not do that yet. We do know that there are clusters. When we do move north, there are more clusters. My goal that I tasked Laura with when designing was to fit things in the natural gaps and spaces to minimize the amount of trees to cut. And so if we do move it north, there are clusters of trees that you can see on the tree and topo survey.
It's kind of hard.
It is. It's a little. It was a lot of trees that they surveyed.
It's really tiny.
Did
But
the
there are
original
clusters
shared
to the north.
driveway meet the buffer requirements?
Excuse me?
Did the original shared driveway meet the buffer requirements?
If we had retained the driveway, yes. The driveway, I believe, is 50 feet wide, or in depth, and then it's like a couple hundred, or 100 feet or so.
Is
long.
that their only access to the property?
That is their only access. And it was a shared access between the previous landowners. The Bukovics bought that house around the same time we bought the Pine View Preserve. And so the previous landowners had that as a shared driveway. And then when the Bukovics came on, they requested if we would mind. And since we already knew DOT was going to require us to put a public access directly across from John Calhoun, we said yes, not thinking that it would kind of create this issue we have today.
It's not a shared driveway anymore.
And this proposed access is directly across down from John's?
Yes, that is a requirement from SCDOT in order for us to get our encroachment permit from them. They required it to be directly across from an already public road. So we have a public access, a public park across from a public road so that there isn't too many stops within like 100 feet of space.
Just come straight down. It's just for maintenance.
So would you say the angling, if you were to angle this more to the, what would that be, north, shift? If you were to shift it or angle it differently, you would be able to meet the requirements and still use that same access road?
Yeah, we would have to still maintain that same access road, and it has to be at a specific angle for SCDOT. Like you can't turn in and have an immediate curve. There's some requirements from them. So we would end up, I think we would just end up having to go back to the drawing board for the entire parking lot. Because we can't just shift it. We can't just angle it. We have to take that road in and then figure out a different way to make it all come around.
Can you come up and point at something for us?
I can.
So this road couldn't turn and go up that way?
This road is so that we can pull a trailer with mowing equipment and our ATV and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So the angle of it as I mentioned, we have to maintain this.
Right.
And that means all of this section we would have to reconfigure. So if we reconfigured that, then we could reconfigure that to come this way. But as this sits now, when we have a truck with a trailer, bringing this in and then coming here and then making a tight turn, it's too tight of a move.
This is coming in right.
It's a maintenance, it's a staff maintenance road. It's not the public driveway.
I think we're trying to also create.
Because this is where people are walking.
But if it's just a maintenance,
It's because it's the Parks and Rec. They're a 20-foot truck, so we have to have like the turning.
but it's, and
Yeah.
move it away from this land may move. And then you have this thing right up against this person who buys this property. And
Mr. Chairman, so when they're talking down there, I don't know if it's being picked up on the record, so it might be best if
Okay.
we talk in the microphones.
We were discussing moving the maintenance road to the north, like just 10 feet or so.
With a 6-foot,
with a fence, but then you can ask for more.
and then
So
Do a hedge.
I was gonna ask, if we went to 10, could we still do the split rail fence and not the privacy fence?
Yeah.
For the variance for that.
Okay,
I'll be okay to say, I'm fine with that.
okay.
It's not okay for you to go all the way almost.
All the way into the, I see. Okay, I'm sorry, my understanding was it had to be the 20 feet. So if we can do 10 feet
Right.
on the 10-foot line and have the split rail fence, and then reconfigure the maintenance road to fit, to squeeze that into the 10-foot buffer.
We'll figure it out. It'll take us, yeah.
Okay,
So now you wanting
could do that.
so the two things you wanting now is to split rail fence
Yes.
and the 10 feet.
They don't need the 10 feet, because the code allows you to
Right,
go
right,
down.
right, right.
So you
So
just need
it's split.
instead of the solid fence, the split rail.
A split rail fence.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. So good. It's
Thank
just
you.
all right. So does everyone understand what's going on there?
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Is there any questions?
You ready for a motion?
wait, so are they modifying
They're modifying their
their
request.
variance request
Yes.
We are.
on the fly? Do you
Let
know
me-
that you can do that
Are
with
we
your
allowed to?
engineer? I mean,
Are we
that
allowed
y'all
to
can
d-
make that.
Are we allowed to modify it on the fly like this?
Sure.
Well,
I mean,
I have no objections to it.
Okay.
just,
The engineers are gonna confer.
that was my question.
Now, if you want to consult with your engineer, making sure that it's okay, then
Okay, so we are modifying our variance request to allow for, if, on the condition that we move the southern constraints of our maintenance road 10 feet off the property line. Our request is then to allow for a split rail fence that's shown on the next to last page in your packet to be allowed in lieu of the privacy fence.
all right. Thank you.
You ready?
So yes, if you want to do it.
I make a motion that we grant them the split rail fence as a variance if their maintenance road is at least 10 feet from the property line.
Second that.
Say that again.
Second.
So it's a motion on the floor to grant the split rail fence with the maintenance road 10 feet off of the property line, and it's been properly made in second. All in favor of granting? So you guys have your second variance. Thank you. So now we'll be moving on to item number 17. Robert Ginger.
Good afternoon to the board. My name is Rob Carmichael. I'm here on behalf of myself and my wife, Ginger, for our request for special use permit for our property at 12 Hudson Drive on Ladies Island.
We're just trying to get everything back together, man.
Yep, you're good.
So who will manage the property?
Oh my gosh, you just gave me a brain fart asking me that right now. Stinger Home Management, Brian Stinger.
And I'm assuming that you are not with any covenants and restrictions, right?
That is correct. No HOAs, covenants, or restrictions on a little private drive.
You have met all of the requirements.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And just for the record, I am over 12 miles away from Coffin Point and Sea Pines Drive.
I think it's a little excessive to have 9 cars there.
Sure. There's parking spaces for 12.
How many guests, or how many bedrooms?
It's 5.
5. And how many guests are you going to have?
Be crammed in there.
You got 15 written in the packet.
It can sleep up to 15.
Seems a little high for a 5-bedroom house.
Pull-out couches, twin beds, bunk beds, if you're counting kids and whatnot. Not 15 adults, that's for sure.
I would be more comfortable with a limit of 5 cars.
All right. Is this, I may be asking a redundant, is this on sewer or do you have separate system?
Septic.
He's got a letter in there from the
We
septic
got a letter
guy.
from.
Oh, watch for you. All right. Is there any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have gotten we received the recommendation from the county. No, you're fine. Hillary, if you want to say anything, if not.
No, I'm
we-
good.
okay.
Staff recommended approval.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special use before us. What would be the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve it.
We are.
Make a motion to approve.
Could you put your mic down?
I'll make a motion to approve the special use for the short-term lodging.
So it's a motion on the floor to approve
I'll second it.
and second the special use permit. All in favor of approving, signify by raising your hand. None opposed? So you can move forward with your special use permit. Thank you. All right. So forgot to ask, was there any public comment for this item? Anyone? Good, we closed that. All right, Mr. Robert Davis, who is requesting a variance.
Good evening, everyone. And
evening.
hopefully this concludes our evening. My name is Julie Franklin. I'm an attorney. I represent the applicant in this particular matter with respect to property located in Buckingham Landing. With respect to the agenda item, it does list the property as being in Bluffton, South Carolina. Though it's just a scrivener's error, the address is actually Hilton Head. It is the unincorporated annex portion of Hilton Head island that is outside
So it's
of
actually
the town.
just in the county?
Right, so it's unincorporated county. But with that being said, I'm going to take a page out of Attorney Tom Taylor's book and give you the benefit of the fact that you already have the materials before you. I'm not going to belabor any of the major points, but I am going to make sure that the board is aware that this property has been owned by the applicant's family since 1977. There is a Supreme Court case called Lucas versus South Carolina Coastal Commission from 1992, which basically has created a holding from the highest court in this land that says that if you purchase property and then later that property is sort of restricted by code that occurs in the future, that the ownership of the property since the time that you owned it, or in this case his family, is related back to the time in which the property was owned and what was required at the time. His grandparents purchased this property in 1977. There are approximately 8 live oak trees in this particular buffer area in question, 5 of which are specimen trees. The CDC specifically references that preservation of these types of trees is tantamount to the Community Development Code. Additionally, the Buckingham Landing neighborhood is in the Buckingham Community Preservation Code. And with respect to that general community preservation code, it makes very clear that residential lots of historic ownership are to be given priority. With respect to this particular application before you, the applicant has been cited by code enforcement for filling land around one particular live oak tree that you have in your application materials, which was, according to an arborist that he had come out and take a look, needing to be cut down. This is one of those specimen trees in light of the fact that there has been coastal flooding. I have him with me today, as well as his mother, who has personal knowledge of the fact that her parents purchased this property and what it looked like in 1977, and suffice to say, the family has lost approximately 40 to 60 feet of actual land over the years.
I have a question.
Please.
It says that this property line is back here, and these trees that you're talking about are not even on their property.
So that's the issue, unfortunately. At this particular point in time, the property as it was in 1971, and unfortunately the plat that we have from 1971 is not all that comprehensive, if you will. So for purposes of taking a look at what it looked like at the onset and what it looks like currently, they again have lost approximately 40 square feet on the marsh line since the 1977 purchase due to erosion and coastal flooding.
That wouldn't change the property line. The property line would just be out in the water.
Well, so that's the thing. When the applicant proceeds to get surveys, they obviously have to go with what they see. And in this particular case, though, the metes and bounds of the original deed from 1977 make clear exactly what square footage it was that the parcel, was purchased under. The as-built survey that you have from 2022 and the tree and topo survey specifically references what the surveyor was able to actually physically see at the time that they came out. So with respect to his variance request.
But we don't have the entire current survey.
So you do. You have the entire current survey.
Right. Oh, it's another
tree
piece
and
of paper,
topo.
yeah.
There are lots of iterations of these. But in any event, in an effort to save this live oak, which was dying and needed to be cut down by the arborist, he filled in soil around the root system so that instead of it constantly being berated with the salt water, which was causing its death, that it would be preserved. And you have pictures in your packet that indicate that, in fact, the efforts that he made were substantial in the saving of this tree and inured to the tree's overall longevity and benefit. In this particular case, despite the fact that he's made those efforts to preserve the live oaks, the county has indicated that any efforts that he makes in his backyard, whether it's planting a plant or putting down sod or doing sort of anything that is routine home ownership related in your own backyard, he will not be able to do without applying for a permit every single time, or will continue to face code enforcement violation liability for anything that he does in his backyard. Based upon the survey that you have before you, you can obviously see that there's not a whole lot of backyard. And in this particular case, his request to do a negative easement, or in fact a negative 20-foot easement, is not to actually fill in 20 feet negatively beyond the line that you see, but just to be able to ensure that his specimen trees are met and his revetment wall, which has been in existence since at least the 80s and 90s, is maintained in such a way that he doesn't need to come and permit everything, always. Because that seems to be the landscape that the county has indicated will happen if this variance is not granted. So based upon the undue hardship of the fact that it's a waste of county resources, it's a waste of his resources, he's not affecting any other property owner. And in fact, his adjacent property owner, who has also been there since at least the 70s, they did take appropriate substantial steps such that their property line actually juts out in line with that negative 20 foot that he's asking for as far as this variance is concerned. And I think that there are some pictures. I have additional pictures, but I only brought 3 copies, and there are many more of you. So I'd be happy to supplement that with colored pictures if necessary. But the bottom line is that in this particular case, he's not doing anything that's offensive or outside the scope or thrust of the Community Development Code. And he really just seeks relief from the board in that he can continue to maintain his backyard without constantly having to get a permit or be cited by code enforcement for doing so. He has 2 small children. They play in the backyard. He'd like to make this a habitable space for them and preserve the live oaks that are in that area, and feels that unfortunately at this particular point in time, based upon the county's position and the code enforcement action that has ensued, he's not going to be able to do that without you granting this variance. And for those reasons, we do very much appreciate you considering our materials, and we do request that you grant this in light of the undue hardship caused and just overall the efficiency of increasing the economy, of the fact that I'm sure we have lots of things for the county to do, and I'd like very much for the applicant not to need to get a permit to mow his grass or to put down new grass if it dies, or preserve his specimen live oaks.
So whose building is this in the Big Oak Street right-of-way?
So that is his building, and actually incidental to this, he's filed a quiet title action in the equity court and a petition to close the road and vest that ghost road into his title. While the road was closed by Judge Dukes, unfortunately, he declined to issue an opinion as to who owned the road. So he actually has had to hire counsel in Columbia that is going to be taking substantial steps to do more court process to determine those issues. But his grandparents and his mother, who owned it before him, who conveyed it to him, have been using that ghost road since the 70s, 80s for their driveway. What has taken a lot of research in all of this is that apparently the Ulmer family in the 1940s decided that they wanted to plat Buckingham Landing and make it a suburban community. And in doing so, they failed to take certain substantial steps to make that actually happen. While they did plat ghost roads throughout the Buckingham Landing neighborhood, they did not, in fact, finalize that plan in any significant way. So Buckingham Landing is actually riddled with, I believe, approximately at least 4 major total ghost roads throughout the actual community, which is, there are neighbors of the applicant here actually today, because it's a problem for these property owners. So I think that there are discussions about working together to hopefully assuage those title issues long term for the benefit of all the community members, because it's like a 20-foot unkempt, nobody maintains it space. But with respect to this particular issue, just in light of the fact that all of the markers are met, he does ask that you grant this variance. And though I have taken a look at the county's recommendation, I staunchly and strongly object to its findings, given that it is, visible to the naked eye that this is an extraordinary issue that is central solely to his ownership, does not have anything to do with anybody else, but just his ability to operate, doing normal residential maintenance of one's backyard in his own backyard without the benefit of needing the county's involvement every single time he does do that.
So who owns Lot 6, Block M?
So that's actually owned by a minor who inherited the property after his father passed away. It is managed by an off-site conservator, and substantial efforts, even in the quiet title action with respect to the closure of the road. They've been notified, the signs have been up. This has been a problem for this particular applicant for more than 3 years.
And are these your applicants' buildings on their property?
No, actually. So if the building that you just pointed to, that I could see that you pointed to, he got a survey because of the sort of just like scattered nature of Buckingham. He moved it. Actually, it's been moved onto the Ghost Road because the survey was acquired, and it was determined that, just because you can see things that look like they've been your property forever, obviously that does not mean that in the context of a survey they are. And he has moved that building onto the Ghost Road because of the results of that survey. But that's kind of just the nature of Buckingham. It's just kind of like everybody sort of, oh, well, that's always been so-and-so's property. And then, a nice surveyor comes out, costs you a lot of money, and all of a sudden you find out that's not the case. And then in order to be good neighbors, you do what you must. But in this particular case, it's not offending anybody. He's making substantial efforts to comply with the spirit of the Community Development Code, which is to preserve specimen trees, which are historic and grand, and to prevent coastal tidal erosion. And so for those reasons, we do ask that you grant this variance.
Thank you. Is there any questions for the applicant? Thank you. Can we hear from the county? Yes, Hillary.
I'm not sure exactly what Ms. Julie Franklin is asking for. What I read was that she didn't want to abide by the river buffer. She wants to be able to, I don't know what she wants to do. The buffer has to be planted. She has gone out, she has done some stuff without permits, and that's why the county kept going out there. I don't see a hardship. I really don't understand what she's asking for. But I recommend disapproval because everyone has a buffer. If it's 5 feet, if that's what's left over, you have a buffer. And it has to be planted and, for the river buffer, for the marsh. So I think she's grandfathered at 28 feet or something like that because of the house and how long it's been there and all that. She needs to revegetate this buffer.
That would just require a specific permit.
Just a permit.
Well, we need to look at the landscape plan to see what she's planting and say that's okay, because you have to plant native plants.
And this would be between the critical line and the riprap wall? Is that what you're saying, between the critical line and the riprap?
Yes, all of this is her buffer.
Okay.
This is the buffer. So this is the critical line. We don't have any
So
jurisdiction
it's
out
here.
It's here.
Because the state owns that.
That's all the state, yeah. So she's talking about these trees, that's all state property. We're talking about in here. It needs to be revegetated, and
So what triggered this? What permit triggered this you looking at the revegetation?
well, she had some violations. So that's what got her all started. She went out and she put the riprap in without, I'm gonna let Tracy tell you all about that. And that's how it triggered everything. She had buildings on someone else's property. She had buildings in the road right-of-way. It's just a lot of things. And when she went and she redid the riprap, then the buffer came into play. And
So they need to replant that and take their grass out, I guess?
yeah, we don't allow sod. She has to put native grasses and things like that in the buffer. So we have Dylan and Tracy, who is the codes enforcement, and he's our staff attorney, who has been dealing with this all this time.
I'm Officer Tracy Goucher at the Beaufort County Code Enforcement Department, and we have had active cases with this particular location for over 2 years now. Obviously, you have seen some of the violations based on the surveys that you guys are looking at right now, but the latest was a river buffer violation. They added riprap, OCRM got involved, they marked the critical line. There was some issues from OCRM out in the marsh as well with plant back plan. Mr. Davis was issued a citation from our department, Officer Kaiser, along with Mr. Kidd, took them to court on February the 26th. They were found guilty, they were fined, and Officer Kaiser wanted Mr. Davis and Ms. Franklin to provide the county with a plant back plan by March the 26th. And I think that to circumvent that, they decided to come in front of you guys.
I just want to add from a legal standpoint, they are not currently under a court order to complete a plant back plan because this was a criminal citation. It was not a civil case where you have a written order requiring you to comply with certain aspects after the judgment. However, they were convicted of the violation and advised that they needed to undertake a plant back plan of about 40 shrubs, I believe that's correct, in the plant back area, or they would be subject to additional code enforcement violations.
So you said that wasn't, the 40 plant, is that by the courts?
No, that is not a part of a court order right now. That is what code enforcement has repeatedly
court
discussed
enforcement
with.
Okay.
This code says that the river buffer needs to be revegetated.
Okay.
So normally what happens with river buffer violations is Hillary looks at the area that was disturbed and she calculates based on the ordinance, and so that's what happened.
So so the county would determine.
We gave her a calculation 2 years ago,
Mhm.
what needed to be replanted, and we haven't seen anything yet.
As well as what type of material needs to.
Right.
But
There's
basically,
a-
like all that sod, the grass.
Yeah, no sod is allowed in the river buffer.
Is there any more questions for the county? If not, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen. Yes.
Ms. Franklin, just so I'm clear, what is the exact ask?
So that's actually what I want to clarify. There is in your packet a document that says the 2024 tree survey. and indicates that there is a blue line denoting the owner's lot line and setback requested by the application. And I think for purposes of clarity and to address Ms. Austin's concerns, we need to have that in front of us. So it should be in the, it looks like this. It may be marred by your stapling. These are a lot harder to get on 8.5 by 11 that make any sense.
Is it 2024 or 2022?
2024 tree
You're holding a
survey.
setback line that's not on your property.
So the setback line that the applicant is requesting is that blue line. So
That's not set back.
well, actually, so that's why the application materials that you have before you actually say negative 20 feet for the purposes of him being able to utilize his backyard. This is not a situation in which, in fact, in the magistrate court code violation that I discussed and that my brother counsel just discussed with you, the judge actually said, go to the zoning board, go to the zoning department and get your administrative requests in, and then we'll talk about this later. But at this particular point in time, the county's contention that a revegetation plan be exacted by the applicant in this case not only calls for a landscape architect to draft that plan at his own expense, to pay for approximately 40 plants at his own expense that are on a list that are sometimes available and sometimes not available, which reduces the amount of plants he has within his discretion to plant, and also contains some sort of clawback provision that the county at any point can come into his backyard within a year or 2 years or however many years. I haven't seen it in writing, so I can't say to you definitively what those conditions are. And if any of those 40 plants are dead, he is then required to replant them in the same place under the same scope and pay for additional plants. And we're talking about an area in which the salinity of the soil has killed a live oak specimen. So this is not a situation that can be mitigated by him waving a magic wand over this particular area of space and just hope that they all survive. This is also a situation in which the OCRM does not have a problem. The state does not have a problem. We have been in constant communication with the state. They're not here. They haven't filed anything against the applicant. They don't have any issues. This is a county issue. I do understand that the county has concerns and that this has been a historic problem in light of the fact that this is a neighborhood where nothing was really put in writing until this all started with respect to his efforts made to get all these surveys at his own expense. And I think the issue is if the county is to have their way in this particular case, it effectively becomes a regulatory taking, and that he does not have the ability to maintain his own backyard. And this 28 feet between the revetment wall that existed for decades before he actually took title to it. This is not a revetment wall he built. This is a revetment wall he repaired that had already been built by his family over the past 30 years to preserve the specimen tree. But if at every single point you do everything that you can to do the right thing and to comply with the community development code and to preserve trees and to prevent erosion in coastal tidal flooding zones, and you're still cited with code enforcement and told as soon as you get out of that hearing, we're coming back for you and we're going to get you again until you do exactly what we say, that's the basis for this application. Because at what point can he truthfully, comply with these sort of overarching extra measures that are unnecessary and waste municipal resources?
Ms. Franklin, but citing the Lucas case earlier, are you trying to make the argument that the current code does not apply to the property?
I'm saying with respect to the previous revetment wall that was already in existence and the efforts that were made by his family during a period of time in which those were permissive, that he should not be required to do anything like a revegetation plan, or I believe that Amanda Flake, who is
But is
the,
that effectively saying the code doesn't apply?
well, only with respect to his family's historical ownership. If this were a new property in Rose Hill, or if this were a new landowner entirely, completely unrelated to his chain of title, I would not be requesting this relief for those reasons. But in this particular case, this is a family that has owned property for almost 50 years. And what they have done, which was permitted at the time, that he is just continuing to make repairs to, which is well within the rights that he has under the current code to make repairs. The revetment wall, there is a code section that specifically states the creation of a revetment wall. All right, this isn't a creation, it's just a repair to. OCRM didn't have a problem. They literally came out and said...
Did he get a permit before he did the repairs to it?
No, he did not, because the code says you don't need one. He didn't create a revetment wall. He repaired a revetment wall in the spirit of preserving a specimen tree in line with the code, as well as the Buckingham Community Preservation Code. So his contention here, and it was also to Judge Fox in magistrate court, is it's already there. I didn't need a permit. I don't know why I'm getting cited. And she said, you know what? Go to the board, take some steps, have this sorted out, and then hopefully we won't have to be back here. Because at this particular point in time, it's a lot of resources that are being expended on something that really doesn't affect anybody else but his right to operate and use his property for residential purposes.
And you're saying that OCRM does not require a permit if you want to do repairs to your revetment wall?
OCRM does not require repairs to do to a revetment wall, nor does the Community Development Code. The Community Development Code request or requirement for permits is with respect to the creation of. Again, this isn't new. If we were talking new, we wouldn't be here. This is old, and it's been around for a long time, and his efforts to preserve his backyard from coastal tidal erosion.
I have a big problem in that it's not on his property, and the difference of square footage between the 1971 and the 2024 is 443 square feet, and that's a lot more than 443 square feet.
I'm not sure what you're referring to is not on his property.
Well, this says this is the property line right here.
May I approach?
It says property line is OCM critical line. Property line, right here.
Right. So the negative.
So this is not, it's not his property.
As to this. No, it is his property.
But then why is the property line here?
Because they did what they.
No,
I'm not a surveyor.
So couldn't somebody argue you're taking something?
Yeah.
I think they have to go with what they physically see.
The property line?
No, survey based on previous surveys. I mean, this is what the property line is, how it's recorded in the deeds.
Because this is an as-built, maybe there is a nuance in your question that I would need further opinion of the actual surveyor on, but my understanding is that the survey that you see before you is based upon what they saw. And we're also talking about markers in marshes that are old, and they weren't able to locate the markers for the marshline side of the property, is my understanding. But again, I didn't sign the survey, so I'm not entirely sure, but I could definitely get that information for you. I just don't want to misrepresent something that I don't know.
I have a question. You're talking about the danger from the salt water, et cetera, et cetera. They're asking you to put native plants and complaining about sod. Well, sod doesn't grow well in dangerous salt water, so how do you justify
Well,
it's okay
when
to put
he
the sod?
he put in dirt fill to repair the revetment wall and shore around the live oak for purposes of preserving it, they are also saying that that's a violation of code. So he has put in dirt to bolster the root system of the
Is
live
it-
oak.
Is it the dirt or is it the sod that they're complaining about?
Well, it's not actually even sod. I believe that the applicant wanted to put down grass seed, just so that he could also have a root system that would put that dirt in place and maintain it. And they told him that if he did that, he would expect another code violation. I mean,
Basically, it's not a native plant.
well, I mean, I can't, there is a list that has been provided by the county, but I do not believe that grass of any kind
Native
is
grasses.
included on that.
Native grasses.
Native grasses I don't have it in
Well,
front
they
of
have
me.
a list of those grass that
Right,
can.
so I don't want to tell you something that isn't accurate, but I don't have it in front of me, and my understanding is your average Bermuda is not going to be on that list. And the problem is that the adjacent neighbor with the bolstered lot line from several years ago, decades, whatever, they've got Bermuda grass. So the concern that the applicant, or something similar, just like nice grass, like a basic grass that you grow in your yard that you mow regularly and water. And because, he feels that he's going to be entirely impaired from being able to improve his backyard, because that's effectively what this is. By saying 28 feet from his porch to the revetment wall, they are eliminating his entire backyard from being able to be used by him without the need for permits and checking and rechecking. And what my variance request is requesting you to do is to allow him to use his backyard
Give him property.
and not waste municipal resources to constantly seek permits for routine residential backyard related activities.
But it's kind of like if somebody lived in an HOA, they have to comply with the covenants. They might have to submit land plans because it's there on the land. Unless you're trying to make an argument that the code does not apply to this land, then he needs to comply with the code. The code has these requirements where he has to submit plans or permits with it. I mean, I'm not sure.
Well,
there's
and that
much of a
is
difference.
that is my chief contention here, is that because this is historical repairs to things that already occurred, that existed prior.
But it's transferred within his family, correct?
Right.
And so you're saying that just because
It's literally grandfathered by his grandfather. And again, if he were a brand new owner, came here from New York, we wouldn't be here, all right? But this is a situation in which the family has owned this property for almost 50 years. They have taken substantial steps to do this. And in the context of these particular, I don't think there is actually a code provision that says that a permit would be required to repair a revetment wall. It's not in the CDC. It's not in Section 51160 in any regard. But if that's the county's contention and they're going to continue to come out and cite him, then we have to come up with another way to handle this for the benefit of everyone involved.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hillary would like to hear from you. No. Come on.
This lady came and sat in a meeting with our attorney, and we talked about the river buffer. We did the calculations. She left. She said she would get a landscape architect to do the plan, and she would get it back to us. I'm just seeing her now come in here,
Was this 2 years ago?
almost 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. And we've been going over and over and over and over this thing about this plant back off the river. This is not the first time you guys have seen. We have granted variances for houses, and the condition is they revegetate the buffer. So I'm not sure what she wants you to do, but she doesn't have a hardship that anyone else in Beaufort County who has gotten a variance or has reduced their river buffer from 50 to 10, they have to revegetate the buffer. And she caused this on herself. She went out there and she put riprap down, whether she's repairing or not. She went into that river buffer Whatever it was disturbed it, and here we are today.
Well, and it's also not on their property.
I'm only dealing with from the critical line to her house. That's it, and I think it's about 28 feet, because I can't deal with the state's property.
It is. Is there any further questions for the county? Thank you, Hillary. Well, with that being said, I have someone to make a motion.
I move that we deny the request for a variance. The property is, requires the river buffer to be replanted. Everybody in the county applies these same rules to their property, and this is not shown to be a special exception, especially since they're showing that the riprap wall and some of the property that they're using is actually the state's property.
So it is a motion on the floor to deny the variance. May I get someone to second that motion? So it's been made in second. All in favor of denying this variance, please signify by raising your hand. Any opposed? None opposed, so this has been denied. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, is there any public comment for this item? No public comment, it's closed. Any old business, new business, adjournment?
I move we adjourn.
It's probably made in second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Here next